As a long-term judge of the Consensus Awards, how do you perceive the value and impact of these awards?
I'm sure it's a unique perspective. I'm sure all the judges who've been involved, and there's been quite a number, would have very similar views to the ones I'm going to share with you. I think the interesting thing about the Consensus Awards is that their value covers a lot, because it's not an award where you're competing to be the best and beating everybody. It's about demonstrating that you've achieved a standard of excellence. It's valuable to anybody who enters the awards program. And I think it's valuable in all sorts of ways. Just the very fact of entering the awards and completing the documentation and the thinking and the presentations that you have to participate in the awards and potentially become an award winner, that process, particularly for relatively young companies and young leadership teams, is incredibly powerful and valuable, because it's forcing them to stop for a moment and get out of the weeds and reflect on what is the business that they're creating, what is the technology, what are we doing, how well are we doing, where might we want to take this. So I think that alone, just the process for leadership teams to actually answer the questions that Julian's put together in the awards program, is tremendous value. I think the other thing is, if you then successfully achieve an award, that comes with a lot of additional benefits. One, it motivates your whole team to know that they're working for a company that is achieving excellence in what they're doing. Is very motivating for everybody involved in that. It's obviously also very valuable from a sales and marketing perspective, because it's something you can go out to the market and say, here's something we've achieved. Third parties, and by third parties I mean, lots of very experienced execs who themselves have had a career in technology, they themselves have reviewed what we're doing and have determined that we're doing it really, really well. So it's a really good statement to take out to the market. The other thing is that they get a lot of feedback during the process. They meet the judges have them present to them, and the judges discuss their perception of the company, the technology, how they're approaching it, and give the companies that apply for these awards a lot of practical feedback, which is based on hundreds of years of experience that's in the room. When you think that there's 10, 11, 12 judges in the room with varying degrees of background in technology. So it's a real melting pot of things that I think if you went and spoke to the winners of past awards, would say that they would have achieved all those sort of things. And I would like to think as well, it most probably makes it easier for them to recruit people into the future as well. So those are some of the key things I think people get out of participating in this program.
Could you share what personal or professional gains you have experienced from being part of this prestigious event?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as I was saying, you're in a room full of people, both the judges with all their experience, but also the people going for the awards. There's a room full of very experienced, smart, motivated, energized people. So you can't fail but learn from that. I've built some very good relationships, particularly from the judges, because we meet year on year. And also, back in the day, I'm not doing it as much, but back in the day when I was doing a lot more training and professional speaking, then just being a consensus judge gave me some gravitas, some credibility to my marketplace, so that there was an assumption the very fact that I'd been asked to be a judge meant that maybe I know a thing or two. So that was useful for my own business in terms of developing my own practice.
Could you share with us how the process and criteria of judging have evolved over the years?
Yeah, this is a bit harder for me to answer, in the sense that, for various reasons, I've had some conflicts in the more recent years, so I've not actually been on the panel for the last couple of years. But by the very fact that it's been going for several years, every year you're learning from the experience, and we always formally reviewed at the end of the experience, how did it go? What could we do better? Are we asking the right questions? How can we make it easier, but also more impactful and more meaningful? And also, the marketplace in those 17 years has changed a lot as well. So what it takes to be innovative now is possibly even more demanding than it was 17 years ago. So I think it's had a continual process of improvement. Also, the judges themselves, many of whom have done it for years and years and years, they're learning their craft. They're also being educated and exposed to new technologies all along the way as well. So I think we became better judges over time as well, the more we did it. We started to get most probably a bit more nuanced in understanding those leadership teams that really had the magic sauce, compared to those that were just doing a really good job, but maybe weren't quite of that sort of top 5–10%. I think it's very interesting to note, unlike a lot of awards programs, just I guess how successful the judges were, but also how successful the winners of these awards have been, is that, most of them, 90% of them, have gone on to be very, very successful and have absolutely fulfilled the expectation that we would hope that they would have done by the fact that we deem them to be fantastic at what they were doing. And so, yeah, 9 out of 10 of them have gone on to be very successful on an international stage, coming out of Australia and performing, well above general market performance. So I think that certainly has confirmed why the awards program has continued for so many years. And I do think part of that is this thing that it's not just about being the best, it's about meeting a standard. So it's not an awards program where just one company gets the award. It's potentially nobody will get an award this year because nobody's actually achieving the benchmark. It is interesting if you go back through the history of it. Some years we've been able to award several awards, and some years it's been only 1 or 2. So it's very much about that benchmark thing.
What advice would you offer to those who are aspiring to win a consensus award?
I think the most important piece of advice I would give is take your application very, very seriously. Don't treat it as a sort of a tick and flick exercise. Just because there's a document that you start with that takes you through, answer these questions and give us some insights as to what you're doing. Don't just do it sort of like an academic tick and flick exercise. Really take it seriously. Think about asking for help, clarification. Don't just assume you know what's being looked at and what good means. And certainly also when it comes to your presentation to the judges panel, take that very seriously and present to us based on the structure we've asked you to present to. We certainly had some years where it was quite disappointing, where many of the companies who had applied for the award came and gave us their bog standard corporate presentation as if we were potentially a prospect for their company, rather than actually giving us a presentation on the key questions that we were asking for. So I think those would be the key bits. Take it seriously, answer the questions as they've been written rather than what you think they're asking, and think about how you're going to present to the judges so that we know we can confidently vote, yes, you absolutely do achieve the standard we're looking for.